HP wins the bidding war over 3PAR.
And Canada loses another of its iconic IT brands. This and a lot more on the High Tech Countdown. Hi, I'm Shane Schick, Editor-in-Chief of IT World Canada.
And I'm Paul Delmibletto, the editor of CDN Computer Dealer News. Shane, there was a big battle last week between HP and Dell over a very little-known company called 3PAR. The bidding went back and forth and finally ended with HP winning, spending $2.4 billion on a very little-known company.
Well, I think that the people at 3PAR must be laughing all the way to the bank. This is actually stretched out through much of August, actually, and I think a lot of people were kind of getting exhausted by it. I must say, I don't think I've ever seen this public a bidding war over any company in the high-tech space. The only thing that seemed kind of similar to me was when PeopleSoft bought J.D. Edwards, and then Oracle decided to buy PeopleSoft just a few days later. In both cases, it didn't seem so much like, you know, an acquisition to improve the company that won it, in this case, I guess, HP, but more of a way of rubbing out a potential competitive advantage that a rival was going to gain.
And I remember that deal too. It also rubbed out Jeff Conway's job as CEO of PeopleSoft. But this deal is all about the thin provisioning technology, and both HP and Dell don't have it, and it saves a ton of dough on customers' software buy. And it's going to be really key for data centers and for the cloud going forward. Now, both HP and Dell don't have this technology yet, and they had to sort of make do with their services arm, the former EDS and Pro systems, sort of figuring it out for customers. But I'm sort of surprised that Dell did not win this one, because they really need it. But in my mind, you know, they overpaid for EqualLogic, and I don't think they wanted to do this again. So look for them to look for a smaller, thin provisioning company called Compellent Technologies in Minnesota.
Some sad news for people in the high-tech industry last week when AMD announced it was going to be dropping the ATI brand name from its products of graphics microprocessors.
Yeah, AMD is going to be parading around two sub-brands, one Fusion, which isn't too original. Oracle has that brand in the marketplace. The other one is Vision, which has been used in IT and in other industries. I hope they didn't spend too much money on their marketing geniuses for those two names. But the thing that I found funny was that they did this because they wanted to get away from 20 years of processor-centric marketing. And I really don't understand that, because that's what AMD is all about. It's about fast processors, so why not toot your own horn to the products that you make? One of the good things that I did like about the announcement was that they're going to keep the Radeon brand and the FirePro brand, two original ATI brands.
Well, you know, AMD has always had some kind of weird approaches to branding. I remember it was almost probably 10 years ago now, they had me for a briefing where they talked a lot about how much money they had invested in coming up with a brand name for some of their higher-end processors at the time, and they finally came up with Athlon, which was kind of a mixture between sort of athleticism and, you know, triathlons and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You know, that became Opteron, and then it sort of devolved into some other things. In the case of ATI, to me, this is a case of where, kind of like in a marriage where, you know, a married woman keeps her maiden name until they have kids, and then finally she decides to take on the husband's name. It's about identity, and I think that AMD was starting to feel like at a certain point it needed to bring those two things together, and that's what's happened.
Well, RIM got a 60-day reprieve from the government of India as it evaluates some possible measures to get some lawful access.
You know, it's interesting because we've actually been debating the lawful access issues a lot here in Canada with some legislation that's come forth and been beaten back and has kind of come forth again. Primarily that has been around what ISPs would have to provide authorities. So it's interesting to see this kind of moving into the mobile segment. I don't know what's going to happen in India, but I'm wondering if it'll ever bring up the same kinds of issues here in Canada.
Well, you know, I'm happy for RIM that they're making some headway with the Indian government, and hopefully that will lead into other countries overseas. But I'm really waiting for the black pad. VMware just concluded its VMworld conference held in San Francisco. They made two acquisitions to further its cloud computing strategy. With us now is IT World Canada reporter Raphael Ruffalo. Raph, thanks a lot for joining us.
Great to be here, pal.
Tell me, Raph, is VMware, they're changing their stripes a little bit. They're going to be known as an IT as a service company. Does that mean that virtualization, the hot market for the past 5 years, is in a downward cycle?
Well, I don't really think it's a downward cycle. I think it just really shows that virtualization has become mainstream. In most of their messaging throughout the show and their general session, they're almost taking the server virtualization aspect for granted. Everyone is put their apps onto virtual machines now, virtual servers. Actually, the CEO, Paul Maritz, said that there's more apps running on virtual servers than on physical servers in cross-global enterprises. So that was really the shift there. They're not talking about virtualization anymore. We're really talking about apps now. They're talking about trying to have the management tools that can manage both your software as a service apps, the stuff running in the public cloud, and also your internal IT applications.
Raph, I attended the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference, and Microsoft put a big bullseye on VMware. And from your take, is Microsoft, making VMware run scared?
I think actually it's almost the opposite. I don't know if you heard, but in the USA Today, the day of the VMware show, Microsoft took out a full-page ad, and it was directed at VMware customers.
Really?
And I'll read you some of the what the ad said. Okay. VMware is asking many of you to sign a 3-year license agreement for your virtualization projects. But with the arrival of cloud computing, signing up for a 3-year virtualization commitment may lock you into a vendor that cannot provide you with the breadth of technology, flexibility, or scale that you'll need to build a complete cloud computing environment. So basically what Microsoft is saying here is avoid vendor lock-in, which coming from Microsoft is quite amusing. And when Paul Merritt sat down with all the members of the media, he was asked about this, and he said he was flattered that Microsoft would actually do that. And it just went to show that, on the contrary, Microsoft is running scared because they are giving so much credit to this VMware customer conference. And he basically said Microsoft warning anybody about vendor lock-in is like calling the pot calling the kettle black. So it's interesting with this battle. I mean, Microsoft definitely has the leg up on the SMB space with virtualization because it's just so much cheaper. But VMware still is the king, I think, with the enterprises.
Well, I think it's going to be a very interesting battleground for sure. And thanks a lot for joining us, Ralph.
Sure, no problem.
Shane, have you ever played the third-person shooter game Mafia II by 2K?
No, and I hate where this is going.
Yeah, well, I think the folks at Unico National, which is a Italian-American advocacy group, hated where that game was going as well. And they were successful in stopping the launch event from 2K in New York City. And to quote their press release, they pounded away at the the venue host to force them to stop the event from taking place. They feel that this game misrepresents Italians and it uses a stereotype and is also demeaning.
Well, you're from Italian descent. What was your take on that kind of thing?
Well, to me, it's a free speech issue. It sort of reminds me of the Native American protests against team nicknames in sports like the Redskins and the Braves. I'm not personally offended by Mafia 2. The Mafia does exist, and if they want to produce a game around that, so long as it's for fun, I think that's fine. I also do support Unico National's stance to protest. That is their right in the United States and here in Canada. So I think it's fine, but like I said, I'm not offended, and hopefully it's a good game. They should have had the launch event, but that's the way it goes.
Or maybe the game producers should have given them an offer they couldn't refuse. That's all we have for the High Tech Countdown. I'm Shane Schick from IT World Canada.
And I'm Paul Dongletto from CDN Computer and Dealer News. Thanks for watching.